what we're doing tonight, among other things, is looking at some cards. What get better? Why am I doing it? I'm doing a British accent for a cowboy set. Some cards get better. Once Outlaws comes out, I should probably just do no accents. That's probably the way to go. There are 6 of these, so kind of 5 in honorable mention, and these are kind of in no real order either. So I'll just start with Bloodletter of Outlaws. And I guess this is kind of an honorable mention because I've only got one card I want to talk about in association with this card. I missed it for the preview video. I just didn't see that this was a thing. But Bloodletter of Outlaws gets better because Rush of Dread is a card in Standard now with Outlaws. This is a thing that costs 3 mana, but if you pump 2 extra mana into it, your opponent loses half their life. Round it up. So if you have a Bloodletter in play, they just die. Isn't that amazing? So that seems that seems like a pretty fun little combo that we're gonna try to make work. That won't. You know. What if what if your opponent's out of cards and you just have 7 mana? 9 mana. You need 9. You need 9 mana for that to work. That's ridiculous. Could happen. Some sort of Dimir control. Esper control. I want to play Sunfall. I just really don't like Deadly Cover Up. It can be good sometimes. I just like Sunfall more. But yeah, this is a combo. Did you guys know this was a combo? Apparently everyone in the Magic world knew that it was but me. So I feel like I need to point this out. I really like Bloodletter. I really like vampires. It's a vampire. Do you know it's not a bat? I can prove it to you. It's not a bat. How's that possible? I don't know either. But yeah, this is a combo just kills them. So I think an OTK is probably like worth like pointing it out. You know what I mean? So let's move on to Aggie's Soul Cauldron. It's 2 mana. You know what this card does. Played against it in all the wacky, like, infinite mana combo decks. But I've had to bring this card up in previous season, like, I don't know, 17 times. It's because there's a bunch of cards that are coming out in Outlaws that are pretty relevant with this cooking pot over here. So what are we cooking? We're cooking Resilient Roadrunner. No, we're not actually cooking. You don't have to do that. But yeah, if you use the Soul Cauldron to get this out of your yard, put a +1/+1 counter on something, you've kind of got some like redundancy with Ginger Brute. It's like literally the Ginger Brute ability. So if you can't find Gingy and you just really want to make your dudes unblockable, you can pay 3 times as much for Gingy's ability. So I'm not sure how good that is. But again, redundancy is important to certain decks. There's also Dead-Eye Duelist. This one's kind of interesting. It costs mana, but all your creatures with counters having the ability to just tap to damage the opponent, like, maybe. It's janky. The good ones, though, are probably Bristly Bill. But only one of your dudes really needs to have this activated ability. But I guess with Soul Cauldron in play, it's nice that if they kill Bill, you can always bring him back for part 2 and get this activated ability on something else. Because like all your dudes are going to have counters, right? You're a Soul Cauldron deck. Aside from that, the last one I want to point out is the dumbest and jankiest one. It's Blood Hustler. A lot of these Soul Cauldron decks make infinite mana like anyway, you know what I mean? So this is a 2 mana guy you can play relatively early in the game. You really don't care if it dies. You kind of want it to die so that you can exile it from your yard and then use your infinite mana to just kill your opponent with its activated ability. You can do that. You can also just gain infinite life. So there's that. There's already like a big red dragon in Standard that you can like pay 2 mana, deal a damage to any target. Sometimes the Soul Cauldron decks use that guy. So I don't even know if they need this, but it is worth noting that this dude's like actually early game playable, can block a guy or whatever, you know. So whereas the other dude, not really. So I think it's fine. I think it's maybe Soul Cauldron. There's got to be better stuff to point out than what I've just pointed out, but you know, jank hearts. The next is Gleeful Demolition. There's also only really one card I want to point out for this, but there's multiple cards that come out in Thunder Junction that could go with it. You know, we just got that thing that cares about whenever you sacrifice artifacts. This, however, does not sack artifacts, so I can't really point that out with this card. You know, I wish I could. But one thing that we did get was Akul, the Unrepentant. This reminds me of the Samurai Jack guy. What is the Samurai Jack villain's name? I've been trying to like come up with it. Is it just Aku? Is it just Aku? Can we take the L off this and he's the Samurai Jack villain? I'm just going to pretend that he is. So this guy says, it is Aku. Thank you, chat. So it says, sacrifice 3 other creatures to put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. Do it as a sorcery. Only do it once each turn. Boo. But yeah, what does this card do again? It gives you 3 creatures. Let's go. You know, like, this seems like it would be pretty easy to set up, you know, turn 1 Voldaren Epicure, get my blood token, or turn 2 Bloodtithe Harvester and get my blood token. And then on a subsequent turn, just Gleeful Demolition, and then line up Akul on the next turn, slap down Traxa, Atali, whatever your game plan is. So I actually think this card is very good, Akul, and I think that Gleeful Demolition might be really key to making this card, like, fantastic. So more work for Demolition to do. It's already done so much. No rest for the wicked, right? Next is Joda The Unifier. You might have seen this one coming, you know. This set has more legendary creatures than any set in a really, really long time. Like a super long time. It's got, I don't know what the number is, 700. It's a lot. I really forgot. I think it's like 30 something legendary creatures. So that it just stands to reason that Joda would get better. But even beyond just legendary creatures, we got these legendary enchantments like Annie Joins Up, which is obviously really good in the Joda deck. Triggering Joda twice, that works, right? Whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand. Yep, that is a trigger, ladies and gentlemen. So triggering Joda twice probably wins the game. You know, just do that. You should slap down Joda and win the game that turn most of the time anyway. But Kellen Joins Up, you know, allows you to cast a legend from your hand when you cast it. And suddenly your legends get even bigger than they already would be in your Joda deck. So that seems good. You know, but along with Tiny Bones the Pickpocket, like we got actual legends in this set that go good in your Joda deck. Like a 1-drop legend. We just need 1-drop legends aside from like Ashnod. And this is a pretty good one right here for your I guess, for your Joda deck. Why not? 1 mana, 1/1 Death Touch, never hurt nobody. And then Malcolm the Eyes is kind of a fast legend as well for the Joda deck that has evasion for when your Joda finally does come down. That's kind of nice. You got Kellen the Kid, kind of somewhat interesting but not amazing. Just flying and lifelink might be good for your Joda deck too. Once he gets big from Joda triggers and stuff. So altogether, or just from Joda being on the table. So altogether, I think it's pretty obvious Joda gets slightly better, but it's also kind of a weird pick. I'm not sure it gets better enough to like be a real deck. Because Joda's, I like the humans Joda deck, Joda humans, whatever. But I still don't like it enough to think it's a good deck at the end of the day. So, you know, I got problems. I got problems with it. But I do think Joda just does get better. And if there's a time to break him, it's like right this second. But moving on to Thousand Moon Smithy, you probably you know, sniff this one out. I really like this card. I want it to work so bad, and it just never does. It just never does. But it got so much stuff, especially in Big Score. Big Score has so many artifacts that are good with Thousand Moons. But specifically this one, we needed a 3-drop too for Thousand Moons. Aside from, you know, Urbrass Forge is good. We want to go Jeskai. Aside from that, Braided Net is a blue card that like I often play as a 3-drop in the Thousand Moon Smithy deck, but it kind of sucks, you know? So how do we play cards that don't suck? Well, let's try Simulacrum Synthesizer, because it's going to trigger on the next turn when we cast Thousand Moon Smithy. We'll get 2 Karnstruck tokens, and then hopefully we can cast some other important artifacts later on in the game and get even more of these guys, right? So I like the Scry 2 to make sure you can set up your Thousand Moons or your Sweeper play or like whatever you're trying to do next turn too. Because these Thousand Moon decks often get built as like control kind of decks with like multiple sweepers in them. If you're doing it not right, but there's a way to do it that way. So I really like this card in particular. And there's a bunch of other artifacts that I think make Thousand Moon Smithy that much more playable. And if nothing else, we're in the deepest standard we can possibly be in ever at this point. So we have the most artifacts, presumably, that we could have. And if this card's ever going to be good, now's a good time for it to awaken, right? So we'll see about it. If it can put like a 6/6 in play, I think you're starting to get there with it. But moving on to, you know, another card I really like. If you're from around these parts, if you're from my chat, you know, I will take any excuse to play with this. It's Zator the Incinerator. 6 mana, 6/6 flyer. So he's 6 mana, unplayable in standard. Get him out of my face. I hate him, Dev. But no. First of all, people play 7 mana cards in standard. You Breach the Multiverse and Traxa and Virtue of Persistence is a card. And Atraxa. And I've already said Traxa. Atali, you know, Titan of Ministry. You know, there's cards. But mostly what I like about this is that it too got a card that sets up OTKs really, really well. And that is another one of these join up cards. We got Rakdos joins up. This is 5 mana when it ETBs. You just get to reanimate a guy and put 2+1/+1 counters on it. And whenever any legendary guy you control dies, RJU deals damage equal to the creature's power to target opponent. So whether you're reanimating Zator and turning him into an 8/8, and then if Zator dies, they take 8 damage, that seems good enough. But you could also just have a Zator in play, reanimate something, and then EOT, fling it at them with Zator's ability, right? So you go face with Zator's ability, get 3 treasure tokens, and deal like at least 6 damage to the opponent. And then the Rakdos joins up since the creature died, will also deal damage equal to the creature's power to the opponent. I could see it being pretty easy to deal 16 damage this way, right? Like, come on. You know, Zator already had push-pull, and I think that was a really, really good card for that deck. But especially now that we have this as like another sort of reanimation piece, then I really think we're getting there with Zator, man. I think there's multiple ways to make this deck work and just OTK the opponent like really, really easily because this card's so good. 100% the best join up in the set, yeah. It's kind of a tough call because I think that all of them are different in different decks and formats. I think most of them are really good in Commander. But that Panharmonicon, that's also a removal spell, you know, so it doesn't do nothing when it comes in play. That Panharmonicon's really good. A few of these are just fantastic. I think Kellen joins up is okay too, but this one is maybe, depending on the brew, the best reanimator spell in Standard soon as the set hits the streets. So definitely one to keep your eye on, man. It's a good Magic card. Next, though, and maybe last, it might be last, is Tamio Completed Sage. I've been talking a lot about this card this season, too. The -X on this is exile target non-land permanent card with mana value X from your graveyard. Create a token that's a copy of that card. So any non-land permanent. That means usually the trick with this, the last year, really. Well, no, since Wilds came out, has been to exile 3 blind mice from your graveyard, create a token copy of it. 3 blind mice says that you can create a token that's a copy of a token that you control or whatever. So 3 blind mice will copy itself, and then it ends up getting out of control. They breed like mice. It's hilarious. Tamio, on the other hand, can now start getting interesting artifacts out of your graveyard. And I guess it's always been able to do that, but it's finally gotten some artifacts that it's really interesting to do that with and create token copies of. We got Esoteric Duplicator. I just want to point this card out real quick because this also makes, or is capable of making, token copies of artifacts. So this is redundancy with Tamio if you needed multiple cards that are capable of making your artifacts into tokens. So that's going to matter right there. Keep that in mind. But the thing that I really think is the glue for Tamio is Worldwalker Helm. This is 3 mana artifact. And it lets you make more map tokens if you would make tokens. But the important thing here is that you can pay 1 blue and tap it and create a token that's a copy of target artifact token you control. So you're going to be making a token with Tamio out of your graveyard. Dump an artifact in your graveyard, make a token. And then Worldwalker Helm can start copying the token that you made with Tamio. This actually has a lot of interesting setups. Like this is the shell for the deck. I'm not even like for sure that it plays the card that's redundant with Tamio that we just talked about, but I'm pretty sure it makes some room for it. But from this shell, you can do a lot of things, right? You can play sweepers and removal and counter spells because we're blue and stuff like that if you want to kind of set it up more methodically and in the late game and make sure that you set it up correctly. Or you can go a little bit more all out and just try and include like the wildest artifacts you can think to make tokens of that Tamio could reasonably make a token of with her starting loyalty. So there's a lot of ways to kind of conceptualize this, and that's what excites me is that there's so many ways to kind of go about it and what do I want to get out of my yard and all that stuff. So I don't know. I think Tamio might have a real chance here at doing something finally, you know, especially again, the format's packed. So if this ability to do anything with her -X, exile any non-land permanent of any type, it could definitely pop off with a full standard too. So those are 5, 6 really kind of unconventional cards that I think might have gotten way, way better once Outlaws comes out. There's a bunch of cards that get better in general. And there's a few decks I want to shout out here kind of towards the end of this segment that I think just get better in general. Mono green, I think it's better as a deck, although I'm not sure if I'm talking about like a mono green stompy deck, or if I'm talking about like a mono green rampish kind of thing. We saw that card that's like, it's got spree, but if you put 6 mana into it total, you get to just put 2 creatures from your hand onto the table. You remember that card? I think that card might be really good, although I think Cavern of Souls might just be better than that card. Am I paying 6 mana for a counterable card in a format where I could just pay the 7 mana for the Atraxa and it's not countered because I have a Cavern of Souls? There's problems with that card when Control's like a really good card in the when Control's a really good deck in the format. But just because of that card, I think we might be the one with the Trojan horse on it. You guys know what I'm talking about. Smuggler's Surprise, I think is its name. But yeah, because of that card, I think we might be in a format where mono green kind of go big is a decent deck. So I'm interested in those. But most notably, I think, and probably the biggest impact the set as a whole will have on Standard as a whole is the enemy fast lands. So basically, not only any enemy colored aggro deck, but also any 3-color aggro deck, period. All of them are going to get better because of the presence of the full 10, like the whole complement of fast lands. So I honestly can't wait for Ellysil Core. It's going to be great to have the Concealed Courtyard, the Orzhov fast land. But Boros gets even better. Watch out for that. Gets way more consistent with its mana now. And Golgari. There's multiple Golgari decks, from Golgari mid-range to Insidious Roots, obviously, that need the mana in the early game. So that's going to affect Standard like a lightning bolt. It's going to do more than a lightning. It's going to do more than 3 damage when it hits Standard. Those enemy fastlands are by far the most impactful cards in Outlaws. But anyway, that's a quick overview of the cards that get better. We got one more thing to talk about on stream tonight, and it's ranking all the Outlaws. And then we'll do WrestleMania predictions. I guess we do have to do that. But before we get to that, I guess I got to close out this part of the YouTube video. Did you guys know you were in a YouTube video right now? You actually are. Typhoon PhD, thanks for the follow, by the way. I appreciate it. In any case, let's just say if you are watching on YouTube, do the YouTube stuff. Like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Check out the Patreon, $1 a month. Vote on decks and all that stuff. I'm trying to get the pitch done very quickly. Casper Ionics. Thanks for the Casper Ion X. Maybe that's it. Thanks for the follow just now. I appreciate you. You are part of YouTube history as well. Immortal forever as part of this video. That's how you do it. And chat says hi, by the way, YouTube. Lord Bios says hi, YouTube. But yeah, if you are watching on YouTube, thanks for doing so. I appreciate you making it all the way to this part of the video. If you want to join us live on Twitch, it's twitch.tv/SBMTGDev. We get up to a lot of hijinks around here and have way too much fun. But anyway, that's basically it if you're watching on YouTube. That's Allski, Kowalski, and Itsky Lewitsky. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.